Hi guys, welcome back. I'm Melissa. If you're just joining me here, welcome. And I'm bringing you guys another random repot today. These videos are somewhat chatty, so I will make sure to put timestamps like in between each plant if you don't really care about a particular plant. But for these videos, I usually talk about the plant, I give care tips and stuff like that. So I do give like helpful information throughout the video. We're gonna get started with our first plant here. I've been meaning to repot this one for so long. I've been neglecting this plant. I see some rottedness in here, I see some dryness in here, and I don't know why I just haven't taken care of this plant yet. This one is my Variegated String of Hearts. So I do not recommend macrame for string of things, because if you ever want to take these guys out of the macrame hanger, you're gonna have a really hard time. I have to end up like cutting them in order to save them, which stinks. I mean, this one isn't that long, so I'm going to do my best to not tangle this one up too much, but I'm also going to prop this one as well, and I'm going to experiment and do some cuttings in Fluval. I've been loving Fluval so much lately, but I have not propped a string of things in Fluval, so this is going to be my experiment with that and see how it goes. Now, my Variegated String of Hearts started from a tiny prop itself, and this is the growth that I've gotten. I want to prop it, get it repotted, and take some cuttings and get it filling out nicely. I thought about combining the two. I have the regular one, which is finally growing back. I don't know what happened. After I repotted it, I have an older video of repotting it. It just kind of got sad and lost a good chunk of the strands. They just kind of rotted off. And I find it kind of odd because in my space, things dry out pretty quickly, but I think it's just the cocoa husk that seems to retain so much moisture. I know part of it is probably on me because I tend to be an overwater sometimes, and that's why I use a chunky mix too, because it just saves me from like overwatering. I think I've wrapped some strands back up because they're like looped because it was growing so long. I don't know, I might have to end up cutting this cord. And unfortunately, so this pot here, I had my string of turtles in, and you guys know about the ant situation with my turtles. I had to prop the entire thing because I ended up soaking it to try and get rid of the ants, which is a horrible idea. Do not soak delicate plants in water to kill the ants, because the ants will still live and then you're going to kill your plant. So I have the entire thing propping, and I got one of those cute little turtle pots at Target, and they still have them in stock, but this was Target last season, and unfortunately these hanging baskets you can't get anymore, which is a shame. I even went on to the maker of this to see if I could find it like under a different website, and I still can't find it. I keep checking periodically to see if they will bring these back, but they didn't. But the turtle pot is so cute, it's terracotta, and I will have to use a macrame cord when I pop my turtles into that one, or I might just actually, instead of a macrame, just find like a long string, or maybe make a DIY macrame cord with that one. Yeah, I have a feeling I'm just gonna cut this macrame cord, which is fine. I got these on a set on Amazon. I don't think they were super expensive. I got these like a while ago. I think macrame cord is very beautiful. But yeah, for a string of things, probably not the best option. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be a tangled disaster zone, you guys. I really don't know what I was thinking. Okay, macrame cord is demolished. So this one is just in a tiny 4-inch pot. And again, these pots are kind of more deep. When you have string of things, their root system is more shallow. So you really want to find like a shallow pot. But I think this one has been in here like a good while. And I don't think the soil is bad or anything like that. I just, you know, want to get it into a more shallow pot to get it filling out nicely. I'm actually not going to be watering this plant because this root ball is very soaking wet. I'm just kind of massaging the bottom so that I can make it fit into the terracotta. And if you see those potato-looking things in your soil, that's the rhizomes. That's where new roots and stuff will grow from, and new leaves. Now, if the soil wasn't my mix, if it was like a store-bought mix, then I would most likely, you know, just remove it and not reuse it. Just pulling some of the dead leaves and stuff out of here. Okay, I'm gonna put this on the bottom. And, oh yeah, here we go. This pot had a plug. Some of the strands are very wrinkly, like the hearts. So when I water my hearts, I tend to water them usually once a week because they get really bright light. If they weren't getting as much light, then I wouldn't water them as frequently. It really just depends. I tend to let my soil go dry. You can do the taco test on the hearts. So if they bend very easily, then that means they're thirsty. And if they are pretty firm, then they're not wanting water yet. But it all depends on the soil, because if you have compacted soil, some strands that aren't getting the water may seem, they look dehydrated and can bend easily, and then you have other strands that maybe are getting the water that are plump still. When you have compacted soil, it's just best to get rid of it and start fresh and just soak the root ball to get all the old soil off, because I find that happens a lot too with like peat moss based soils, like all the big box store plants like that. That gets compacted over time and the entire root ball isn't getting hydrated like it should. I just have my normal mix here beside me. I'm gonna add a little bit of fresh in here. You guys can see, move this. I'm gonna do my best to untangle this. I'm just trying to center it in the pot, and then we will fill up around. I'm kind of like tainted with this pot now, because when I see this pot, all I see are ants climbing up and down it. There were so many ants that were climbing into this pot when the turtles was in here, and it just like gives me the heebie-jeebies. But I'm gonna hang this back on my window. I hope there's no longer any like ant stench on this pot. So just make sure if any of the tubers are sticking out that you kind of bury them into the soil. And the thing with string up plants too, I feel like just because the root system is so thin and shallow, that depending on the pot that it's in, they can get overwatered easily and underwatered easily. I don't always do a full water with these plants. So this one does have a drainage hole, you know, on the bottom. So I don't always do a full water, let it drain every week, because I water mostly with rainwater. So I don't really have a buildup of minerals and stuff that I would need to flush out. So I'll just water like on top and I don't let it drain. And then every once in a while, I will take it when it's like completely dried and give it a good water, if that makes sense. When a plant is just establishing, like misting that top layer will help keep it hydrated. Those little roots that are into like the top inch or two of the soil, those can tend to dry up easily. And if the plant doesn't have a lot of roots, those roots can tend to dry up. So, depending on like your plant and how established it is, you may want to just start like just watering the top inch or two. Oh, whoops, forgot the fertilizer again. Don't want to add too much more because I had some already in there. And like I said, I'm not going to water this in. I do have some strands that look dehydrated, which they may not be rooted in here that well, but I'm gonna try and untangle this. I think this might take me just a little bit. I don't have a lot to untangle, but I will do that real quick and I'll be back. I wanna show you what's going on here. So I have one main like chunk that has a few vines. I have a strand on this side that has reverted, as well as this side, as well as like one more reverted strand, but you can see where it had reverted. Like you can see the pink there, and it had started to go all green. Then I have a smaller strand on this side growing. And then this main long one here I had propagated before. You can see where I had chopped it. And so it has an offshoot here, and this long one goes all the way down. And it has like a second offshoot here. And then one is kind of reverting. You can kind of see how one is like all green again. It's very weird how like a lot of it has decided to revert, because you can see where it was variegated and then it started to grow green after that, but one side is still variegated, and that's the variegated strand. And this is why some strands look dehydrated. I guess it maybe was unrooted. You see how wrinkly they are? So this was just hanging off the plant. So I don't know if this is salvageable. I'm gonna try and just root this, I think, in the Fluval and see how it goes, because I don't wanna waste that. And I might take a few more cuttings to do in Fluval. But I wanted to point out one thing here. Let me see if I can find. So here is another offshoot. So if you have a tuber, you can plant that back down into the soil and, you know, encourage rooting and branching without having to prop it. I was trying to see if I could find some like bigger ones. I saw some as I was untangling, but now I don't know if I see any of them. I hope that made sense what I was saying. So with these strands here that have kind of reverted, I don't really want to cut them. So I'm gonna pluck this down into the soil. I'm gonna try, I might have to get a little pin, but I'm just gonna push that little air tuber down into there and cover it. That way it'll root, and that way you can kind of fill the pot out without propping. But it can easily come like up, so you just wanna try and get it secured down there, I guess. And then I have one more that is dividing these two strands. I'm gonna try and pluck this one down in here as well. Because you know how some people say, you know, you can coil it on top and they'll hopefully root into the substrate, but unless the little air tuber is kind of buried under the soil, it's not really going to root. Put a little soil over top. And then where it is splitting again, here, this little air tuber, I'm going to pluck this one into the soil. And I'm going to use one of my little moss pole greenie pins to secure it down in here to encourage that to root in there. So I'm going to let that one trail down on that side, but I might take a couple cuttings from that strand. And so where I have a loop now from where I pinned the two vines down, I'm going to kind of secure this in a couple other areas with another pin to hopefully encourage rooting. And to encourage rooting, you just need to stay on top of like misting, and it'll encourage it to root down into the substrate. And then I'm just going to cover with a little bit more soil. And you want to make sure the top of the pot gets a lot of light. String of things really like a lot of sun. Okay, so I kind of have it secured down in a few spots. So I have a long strand over here that is reverted. And then I have a long strand over here. So it looks like it's branching again right here. So I might cut below that. Let's cut here. So then I'll have this little strand to propagate. And on this green side, it had grown like really small, and then it grew some larger leaves here on the bottom, which is kind of interesting. But again, this strand is pretty long. I actually might cut quite a bit of this one off because I don't like the small growth here. I'm gonna cut, well, I'm gonna cut here because it seems to be branching in a couple areas. So now I have vines kind of fanned out on all sides. I'll have 2 healthy strands to prop. And then since these ones didn't have roots, I don't know what all will live with this since they're not healthy strands to prop to begin with. So with our healthy strands, I'm gonna take my cup of Fluval. And there is a right way, like the end that's growing, you wanna leave out, and the end that you cut. So what I'm gonna do is remove the leaves from the bottom strands. And if it has blooms, you can cut those off too. There's 2 nodes that I have here and here. So you want that to be down into the substrate. Because they'll root off the nodes. For this strand, we are gonna get rid that leaf, that leaf, that leaf, and that leaf. And again, we will root 2 nodes. So from this little remaining root ball here, I'm gonna see what I can salvage, and then I will pluck these down in the Fluval, and we'll see how well the string of things root in the Fluval. I managed to save all of these strands. Again, 2 were healthy strands and the rest are the dehydrated strands. And I filled to the top with the Fluval. I just made sure to bury the nodes in the Fluval. I kind of took 2 nodes each. You know, I cut the leaves off and it just filled up, you know, to the top with the Fluval. So I'm gonna water this in. And again, I don't know how these are gonna root in Fluval. It'll be a little experiment. In Fluval, I just water pretty much to the top. If it gets a little soupy though, then I've watered too much. Dump some of that out. I'll keep this on my shelf and we'll see how that roots. With our pot here, I know I said I wasn't gonna water, but where I had buried those nodes in 3 spots, I'm just going to moisten to encourage those to root, and that's it. Okay, it might be a little bit backlit. I tried to turn my brightness down. So I did cut the bottom 2 strands one more time because one of them was really long to try and even it out. It's still getting a lot of sun on the top of the pot, and I have it up highest to where, you know, it won't, you know, land on the plants down below, at least for right now. So I think it'll fill in nicely. And then I put the strands here in Fluval on this shelf and then they'll root. I'm actually curious how they're gonna do. I think they're gonna do well in Fluval because everything is doing well in Fluval. I'll probably leave these in Fluval so that they can get a good amount of roots first. Okay, the next project I've been meaning to do is I'm gonna add a grow pole to my Florida Beauty here. It has been like really bugging me. So this one here is the one that I got imported from Root Greenhouse. Look at that leaf. That one is very beautiful too. I was thinking about chopping it back. It's doing like, it'll do some variegated leaves, but then it does some non-variegated leaves. The genetics on this plant is very strange. So as you can see, I have a clear pole in the middle holding up the vine, and it's extended beyond that, and I accidentally broke the top leaf off. You can see the head of it is just, I beheaded it. And it looks like it's probably like not variegated. I don't think this one's variegated. I'm tempted to just cut this one. Just like cut it completely off. We're gonna get rid of that leaf. I just am running out of space, so we'll see. I might chop it down the road. I'm gonna let that just hang out here for now. So I'm really excited to use this grow pole because it's a smaller version. You guys know I use Thiccly's GrowPoles all the time, and they were so kind to send me their new ones. They're a smaller version, so they're great if you just have one vine that you're doing. Like this beauty is just one vine. They are a lot smaller. You get a 10-pack too, which is nice. So they're 3 squares across instead of 4, and they are a bit shorter. So I'm gonna go ahead and do an extension with one to make it like this tall. But I like that these ones are 3. It's literally the exact same thing, just a smaller pull a thinner one because I feel like I use the medium size the most. But again, it's still like a pretty wide pull, so I'm glad that they came out with a smaller one. Like, it's so cute. Hopefully you guys can see it okay. But once I fill it with moss, you'll be able to see. But it works the exact same. The soil flaps. And I'm gonna go ahead and do the extension on top. So with the extension, you put the new extension on the inside and you push the side flaps, the top flaps, into the soil flaps on the bottom of the new pole, and you'll hear a click. You hear that? It works better once it's filled with moss. I don't know if it's gonna stay that well until I have it filled. Yeah, you basically just press it into the top flaps. These ones will definitely take way less moss, I feel like. Yeah, definitely a lot less moss. Do you see how skinny it is? It's so tiny. Look at how tiny it is compared to the other ones. I don't know, I think it's so cute because it's so tiny. What the heck? Okay, let me see if I can get this extension in here because it's so tiny. Okay, it hooks a lot better now that the moss is on the inside of it. Okay, so that's what it's looking like. We have two, I left it kind of empty on top a little bit, and then this will fill with soil, and then we have the two soil flaps. It's a very skinny. It was a little bit harder to work with, I think, just pushing the plastic into the holes. But I like that it's skinny, and again, it's like less noticeable. It feels stable, so I think I'm really gonna like this. I'm gonna put this plant into a clear pot since I'm using a pole. I'm gonna add some soil on the bottom of this. Yeah, the root system on this plant is plentiful, so it shouldn't have any problem getting on the pole. I do have to break this up a little just because I need to kind of center the pole, and I need to make sure the roots can fit in there with it. Okay, I think that's good. So we are going to flop this into the center. Of course, all my soil falls out. Let's start again. Okay, so the plant we are going to do right in the front. I'm gonna get this situated in the pot first, then we'll work on. This plant has a lot of air roots. I'm gonna try and squeeze these into the pole already or help guide them to the pole. So I have the pole centered, and then I put the plant and the root system in the front, and it'll work its way like around the back side. I always center my poles. This one is a chaotic repot, you guys. Chaotic. Okay, I scooted you guys a little bit closer. So I filled up with soil, and all we're gonna do is try and squeeze some of these aerial roots into the moss. Or I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get all these in here. I might just have to do some on the outside, like the really long ones, because I might break. So down here at the bottom, these older nodes most likely will not root because they're old nodes. So the ones that are just pushing out are the ones that are going to be rooting and attaching into the moss. But I'll probably get some Velcro and attach these bottom ones really close to the pole. You just have to kind of press in. But I'm just going to anchor the bottom right now with a clip, and then I'll probably get some Velcro. And I'm just going to start at the top, I think. And I'm basically just going over where the nodes are and the aerial roots to secure it against. The goal is to secure it against the moss so that they're encouraged to root into it. I usually wrap a couple times just to secure this because this stuff isn't the most sticky. It's kind of like cling wrap in a way. Stuff isn't the easiest to work with, I will say that. It definitely just takes some getting used to. You just have to pull it like pretty tight and wrap it a few times and it'll stick on itself. Okay, I'm glad I didn't cut it. It looks good. I'm just gonna give this plant a little bit of water. I don't think I'm gonna mess with the leaves today, but I might eventually tighten them so they're not so wide. I'm gonna use some Superthrive. I don't think this philodendron would shock any. Philodendron are pretty hardy. The Philodendron Floridas, that is. And once it roots in here better, it'll be more stable. But I wouldn't pick the pole up without picking the pot up with it, or it might come just flying out until it roots in there. So that's what it's looking like. If you can see, I think it looks good. Much happier with it than the stake for sure. And then it'll grow. I'll fill this up with moss as it climbs, and then I'll probably have to add like a third layer on at some point. I'm going to show you what this one looks like up close, and then I think we'll do one more for this Random Repots today, just because I feel like these two plants have taken me a little bit longer. So we'll do one more, and then we will do another video on another day. Okay, so this is her in this spot. I really love these skinny poles. Look at how like tiny it is. And these are the medium ones that I use all the time, how much, you know, thicker they are width-wise compared to the skinny ones. So I'll make sure to link these skinny ones down below if you're interested. Again, they come in a 10-pack and I used 2 here. I think it looks so good. And I used my mix, and you can see where I attached the grafting tape to the nodes. I couldn't fit the roots of this node in there because they were growing so long, but that's okay. And like I'll do is I can take that string like I was saying and like kind of somehow make the vines go a little bit closer to the pole so it's not so wide. So if I want to manicure it at some point down the road, I can. Very happy. It seems very sturdy. Like it's much steadier than the stake. Looks so good. Okay, the last plant that we're gonna do is one that I've been meaning to do for so long. I'm so happy I'm gonna take care of this one. This is my pothos. I believe I have a mixture of NJoy and Pearls and Jade. I believe so. Because I know like the NJoy is what this one looks like. And then I have some leaves on this one that looks like a Pearls and Jade. So it might just be a combo pot that I had purchased a while ago. So I have 3 cuttings that I have been rooting in a mixture of perlite, sphagnum moss, and some fluval. I've had these in my prop box for, I don't know, probably 8 months or something crazy like that. I did a prop box video a long time ago. I think it was over the holiday time. I can link that too if you're interested on like me putting these in here. And they have quite a bit of roots, so I'm gonna go ahead and take them out of here. And we are gonna put these on a pole because I want one to climb. I was debating on whether doing the medium or the small, because I feel like I've seen a large one of this in person and I know the vines can get pretty thick, but I'm thinking I might just try it on the small and just see how it goes. I went ahead and like pre-made another one just to save some time, because I think these would look, 3 vines I feel like won't. I have like 3 squares, so I feel like 1 vine going up each one would be fine. And usually with moss poles, 1 vine tends to overpower the rest. So I feel like this wouldn't be overwhelming. So I'm actually curious how this one's gonna climb on one of these poles. So that's what I'm gonna do for this one. So let me first untangle all of this in here. I think I used the mixture of moss, perlite, and fluval because I wanted to use the moss that was in my prop box. Like I didn't want to waste it, or I normally would have just done probably straight fluval. Because moss sometimes, even though I used to love like really propagating in sphagnum moss, it was my go-to for everything until now that I've discovered fluval. It's just moss sometimes can stick to the roots. It's the only thing about moss that I don't like. But I should have a pretty healthy root system on these, just because they've been in here for so long. Yeah, look at that root system on that one cutting. So that's gonna do phenomenal. And I'll probably just save this for some other props. I'll reuse this. I'm trying to think where I should put this one. I actually might stick it in my cabinet behind me until it roots a little bit better in there. I don't really have space for it right now, so I might stick it in there. I think it would do well. I put my Mandula that I put on a Thiccly pole. I think I did that one around the holiday time too, around December, I think. And it's really liking being in the cabinet. It's doing well. It's the second one. Doing the combo, it's easier to get off the roots when it's not just straight moss. I think having the perlite in there helps. Yeah, if you don't like fluval, or if you want to do something other than moss, do a combo of at least perlite and moss. We are going to use another one of our, I believe this is not quite a 6-inch. I think these are 5 inches. So we are going to fill the bottom part of our pole with soil. And for cuttings, when you're just starting a pole, it's really important to get the majority of the roots that have grown into the soil. And any of these nodes, the newer aerial roots, will grow into the moss. So you want to make sure to get those against the pole, against the moss. I'm just going to do a temporary clip here. You guys can see. This bottom leaf I'm going to get rid of here, along with that one and this one. Okay. changed my mind on the clear. I'm gonna use, I should have Velcroed it first before I put them in here. And I'll show you what it looks like up close. Yeah, I'll have to let you know how I feel about the skinnier poles. I feel like I won't really know for sure until my plants climb. And that's the thing about moss poles, is they just take so long to start growing. And some will grow faster than others, but in order to really know if you like something as far as like a pole, you just have to kind of figure out what you like aesthetically. And until you really grow plants on poles and practice with it, I guess, so to say, and figure out what you like with them, it's hard to really know until you go through it yourself. I get asked a lot about how do I know which plant to put on which type of pole. I think the wire ones are great. I mean, they're very sturdy. They are a bulky pole, and I feel like they work great with plants that get big, thick vines like a pothos. And it's nice with these ones is that they're clear, so they're not as noticeable, you know. I have a lot that have 2 extensions, but I have a couple that I'm going to be adding a third one on. So I think over time, I feel like if you add a stake to the back, I feel like it would still be pretty sturdy. And then it's more or less just kind of what you prefer, like what style you like better. I'm gonna let this one drip, and then I'm gonna make room for it in my cabinet behind me until the root system can get stronger. This one had a lot of roots, so that's like a good thing. I'm not worried about this one potentially rotting out. It's just, you just have to be careful when you're trying to keep the moss moist, not to keep the soil as moist. It's hard to balance it. So I'm gonna bring it closer so you can kind of see what I did. So that's how skinny it is. I did a pin on the top vine just to get it kind of close to the moss as it climbs. It should hopefully push a aerial root out and attach. And then kind of getting some of these leaves out of the way. I just Velcroed at the very bottom of it. There are 3 vines, the 3 nodes against the moss down there. Kind of see what that looks like. And I should have a little ways before I have to extend it. Thank you guys for watching. I think I'm going to end it here. I feel like this video has been over about 3 hours or so. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this one. I think I'm finished repotting for the day. I'm really glad I got these plants taken care of though. I feel like doing these random repots is like forcing me to take care of my plants that I've been putting off for a while. So I'm happy to keep doing these. I feel like I'm gonna do a random repot at least once a week or so until I can get through the rest of my repotting, or have like plant repotting days like I did a Hoya day. So I'm excited to keep this up because it's just making me feel so much better knowing that I'm like taking care of these plants and getting them good and ready for the growing season. I'll make sure to link these grow poles down below in the description. I can link them down in the comments too if you're wanting to try the smaller ones out. I think I'm really gonna like these. And if you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments and I will get back to you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys later.